Okay, so today the presentation is, all about, changing, maximizing your time management. And one of the things that I realized and I did this years ago, uh, it's very important from my perspective how do we go about maximizing our time? The reality is if we look at certain things, we have one constant in life, and that is 24 hours. Nobody has more, nobody has less. It's that simple. The bottom line is how do we get the maximum out of that? Because look, we have to be good parents, good spouses, good whatever we have to be, good family members, everything. We only have that 24 hours that we have to carve up and to make any sense of it. There's massive competition. The consolidation is crazy. Generally, clients are in total control of everything. The internet can be a nemesis at some level, but again, and client loyalty is all but gone, right? Our industry has managed to commoditize itself at such a level that really price is only the only issue. So, and most of us don't have a sales, and we have a sales mentality, but we don't have a marketing mentality. And we want to talk about that. One of the things that I want you to really understand here is, what are you worth an hour? And this is all, you're going to see how this all ties back shortly. So the mentality of many, I believe, is if you can fog a mirror and write a check, they'll take your order. But I don't know that that's necessarily the best strategy. And I think that we need to really look at that. For today's takeaways, we want to identify about the numerous time wasters that are out there and how to go about avoiding these. Determine the various time goal levels, how to prioritize your work, developing a manageable format, and then looking at marketing and sales opportunities and how they tie back to this. I want to give you an example. Years ago, when I owned Headwear USA, I had a young lady that worked for me. She said, "Oh my God, I'm so bogged down. I don't have any time left over, and I'm running hours and hours on end." Until we took the time to sit down and break down her day and understand the different things that she was doing on a regular basis, guess what? She was all over the place. But when we were able to segment that and really understand where she was spending the majority of her day, guess what? Things changed. We wound up finding about 3.5 extra hours a day because we were able to put things in place. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about here today. There's 4 ways to grow your business, folks. Organically, you can reactivate old clients, you can get new clients through prospecting and through acquisition. We're going to discuss those first 3 for right now. First of all, I believe you have to analyze your situation and your business. And this is your particular business. And I did this through classifying and segmenting my clients, my accounts. And then I wanted to define what my marketing dollars were. I created a marketing plan, and I will tell you that by doing this, it exponentially helped me grow my business to a level that was amazing. Now, I'm going to be fully transparent. I never sold $1 million in any one year, but I will tell you this, that I was close. I was around $960,000, $980,000, but I was averaging my margins were averaging somewhere between 58 and 60% every single year. And the reason is because I was very strategic and very focused. And it was through this process. Many of the people that I work with now and I coach have embraced this. And it hasn't been easy for a lot of them because change is very, very difficult. But for those who have embraced this opportunity or have embraced this concept and this idea, have seen exponential growth, not only from a sales standpoint, but from a profitability standpoint. And I think because of the context of this presentation, one of the things that they really have taken away is the fact that they are now in more control of their business and more in control of their life, giving them opportunities and time to spend time with family, with friends, and when they're in the business, focused on the business, but in a very, very productive way. So when we start talking about identifying your ideal clients and prospects, you need to ask these questions. Who are we targeting? People ask me all the time, so Cliff, and we're going to talk about this as well, about developing vertical market strategies. Where do I begin? Who is my target audience? Where do you focus your time? And here's the other thing. Do you have clearly defined goals? Why should we care? Most of the people in this industry that I found, the only thing they want to do is sell, sell, sell. And that's fine. But strategically, you can still do that. But if you're doing it smarter, you will see some, I mean, the pressure that is relieved of you will be amazing. So when we start looking at our existing client base, because people will ask me, where do I start? And I said, rather than developing vertical markets and strategies outside of your space, look at your existing client base. And I have an example of how this all looks in a spreadsheet coming up in a minute. And again, I'm not going to kill you with spreadsheets, but I think it's important for you to understand how this all works. So for me, what I wanted to understand with my existing clients, because this will relate back not only to the vertical markets, but also the classification of how I'm rating or ranking my customers throughout this process. So I'm a firm believer, and I would encourage you to, if you don't have the access to doing Excel and you don't understand it, find somebody to format a database for you, like what I'm going to show you here in a second. But the one that we created was an existing database that would actually aggregate data year over year for 4 years, so that you could actually look at how the progression or digression of your clients, where were the areas. It included the sales, it included the profitability, it included what the gross margin percentage was, the number of orders, the average order size. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because it gave me a starting point and a benchmark for me to look at my clients. And really, because look, at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. So again, if you can start with your existing database, and here's an example of what I'm talking about. And this is a very simplistic thing. And you could actually, if you didn't want to formulate a Excel sheet like this, you could actually create one and just plug the numbers in. But this, for instance, we look at the educational vertical market here. So, and again, these are all fabricated clients and whatnot, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it looked like. So we want to be able to have the client's name, what the classification of that customer is. Was it an A, B, C, D, E, F? And we're going to discuss that as well. But then again, we want to be able to look at the sales, gross profit potential and whatnot year over year to see how this particular company and also that vertical market is trending. And we're going to get into the details of that, because for me, I want to be able to, remember 24 hours, I want to be able to focus my attention and my energies into the people and the companies that are going to make my company the most profitable and are going to be the ones that are the easiest to work with as we move forward. I'll explain a little bit more. So when we start talking about client and prospect classification, the classification is done as the way I've described it, A through F, and then there's 3 other categories, H, I, P, and we'll discuss that. But by doing this classification, it gives you a perspective on your clients. Where are the opportunities? How will you market to these various channels? What will those assets that you use look like and be like? And then again, this ensures that your marketing is relevant. There's too many times that I have worked with folks that will create a marketing email blast that is generic. Here's the problem with that. You send out a generic email. If it is irrelevant to the customer, click, it's gone. It's gone. But if you can segment your database, for those of you, for instance, that are using Sage, if you have the ability to segment your database by vertical markets and you're doing your email blast, if you create something, for instance, that's relevant to the construction industry, don't send that to hospitality. Don't send that to aerospace. Send something that's generic, something that's relevant and engaging for that particular audience. And again, by classifying and breaking your clients down, it makes this totally much more simple. Identity of each of these channels, the characteristics of this is going to vary by client. By marketer. I don't like using the word distributor, so if I kind of interchange those, understand that I'm trying to get out of that phase, because I think that you all deserve a lot more than being called a distributor. Okay, so here's classifications and their meaning. And this is why this is going to vary. A listed is your top guy. B level, you can see this is above average. Middle tier is your C. Lower tier D. E is acceptable. Now, in these 5 channels, I'm not getting rid of any of these customers. But how I market to these customers and how I engage with these customers is going to be different. Remember the 24-hour thing. And then finally, we have our F, or our fail, or the customers that we will dump. And I got a funny story about that. Then we also have, your H level customers, and I call those the hold customers. This is, I'm doing my prospecting and I'm marketing. I'm getting new customers. The reality is, I'm going to do my best to understand if they are exactly who I'm trying to target, but they may not fall into the bucket that I thought they would. So they, after 120 days of having interaction with them and working with them, I can now say, okay, this person really does fall into my C-level bucket. And now my marketing efforts and the way I'm going to engage with them is going to be at that level. Certainly our goal is to move people up the rungs if we can. But again, we want to be able to, and you'll see how this all ties back to the marketing as we move forward. Then we have our I, or our inactive, our people that we need to reactivate or resuscitate. And there's often, I see that oftentimes there's so much that's available there, and we forget that chunk of business that we've worked with in the past that's been successful, but we've kind of like fallen off the rails. And again, I encourage you to really look at your client base, look at it hard. And then, we could certainly have a discussion about that too, about how you can go about doing that and help manifest those customers back into your fold. And then, of course, you have your prospects and the people that you're going to work with. I look at the first 2 channels as really the easiest ones to work in, right? You have your existing or your organic customers, then you have your reactivation customers, people that you work with. Prospecting and things like that, the sales cycle's a lot longer. And again, I think it's part of what you need to do, but you just need to be mindful of that. So when we start looking at classification, and this is where it's going to be different for everyone, those classifications are going to change. Sales volume, your profitability with the customer, the ability or the opportunity to grow, what the relationship looks like. Do they communicate? What is their disposition? Are they open? Do they respond? Do they pay their bills on time? Do they refer you to other customers? These are critical factors which help me in the past determine where they would fall into this bucket. Everybody in my bucket, if they were A through E, had to pay their bills on time. They were open. Again, you're going to find that that's going to change. But your classification really has to have all this criteria and more. But one of the things that's really important is, I think, sales volume and, most importantly, profitability. So for me, an A-listed customer when I had my marketing firm was a company that would do 50 grand a year with me or more at 45% gross profit or better. Now, that might mean that I had 1 or 2 people in that space. And that's okay. So you don't have to necessarily, a lot of times people will retrofit everything and go, well, they're really nice and this, that, and the other. They don't do the volume, but I'm going to make them an A customer. You can't do that, folks. You really can't do that. You really need to really understand this is critical. Now, when we start talking, I'll give you a funny story. We have F-listed customers. These are the people that I don't care what sales volume they do. You wouldn't do business with them. Now, I know that's going to be harsh for some of you, but think about this again. 24 hours in a day, why do you need the stress? Why wouldn't you work with, reactivate the AB listed type customers, work with your A through E customers that appreciate your value, pay their bills on time, give you referrals, give you constant business, are profitable, etc. Why waste your time on an F listed customer? My dad, God rest his soul, was an F-listed customer for me. I actually fired my father because my dad, while they paid their bills sort of on time, they paid in 90 days, but they would take a 2% discount. And then when I complained about it, he said, just bill me back for it. I'll be more than happy to pay you the 2%. So I billed him back, and he'd take 90 days to pay that and take 2% off of that. Guess what? Pardon me. For me, that's not a profitable client. That is not somebody that I want to work with. And while my dad was doing anywhere between $30,000 and $65,000 a year, for most people that would be an A or B listed customer, it didn't meet all my criteria. By getting rid of the F listed customers in my space, it opened up opportunities for me to prospect to AB type customers, to work with my ABC listed customers more frequently and with more engagement. That's where it really, really paid off. And I literally saw exponential growth because of that. Now, marketing to existing customers, we talked about organically. In every case, your marketing, your key points here, your marketing must be relevant and supporting either a vertical or lateral market strategy. We're going to speak specifically about vertical market today. And you need to look at what are we going to do for each of those classifications. So if you're dealing with A-listed customers, and we're going to get to a cheat sheet here, I'm going to that is actually in the resource area for you, is looking at, for our A-listed customers, what are the things that are we going to do, and what is the frequency going to be? And the value of each of that should be dictated by the level. So for instance, if I'm looking at an E-level customer, for me, that might be someone that does 2 orders a year. Maybe the average order size is $1,000, and there's no opportunity for growth. But guess what? They're good people. They pay their bills on time. But I know that there's no opportunity for them to expand because I've tried, I've worked it. So they're still in my queue. So what am I going to do? What kind of money am I going to spend on them? I have to keep in mind, because I don't want to lose that profitable $2,000 a year, because I might have 10 of those. So I don't want to lose that $100,000 a year, or that $10,000 a year worth of business if it's profitable. So how am I going to target and market to them? It may be strictly email blasts. It may be targeted email marketing at the most. A D-level customer, I may do the exact same thing, but I may put them in a postcard mailing sequence, for instance. If I want to send something like a teaser postcard that's going to go out every quarter. If my C levels, I'm going to do maybe that plus a little bit more. But my A-listed customers and my B-listed customers, I know that I really have to keep them in the fold. I'm going to do things that are different. But again, it has to be engaging. It has to have a call to action. And in my opinion, it has to be memorable. And most importantly, it has to be measurable. And that's where the call to action comes in. You want to make, because again, I was talking to a young lady yesterday. Love her to death. I was at a show speaking, and she said, Cliff, you know what? I'll do these great marketing pieces, but guess what? I don't follow up. And she says, they cost me a ton of money. First of all, I'm thinking, well, why would you do it if that's the case? And how do you rethink that whole process of what you're doing? And again, if you're thinking about this from a dollars and cents standpoint, of what you should, again, every marketing dollar you spend, you should be getting some favorable return. I look at it as I try to get a 20 times multiple minimum of every marketing dollar I spend. So if I spend $1, I should get $20 back in a profitable sales. So just something for you to digest and think about. So I want to just show you the reporting again to vertical markets. So the way we would break it up, as you can see, column 3 here has the various vertical markets. And again, it's, and there's a whole laundry list. I did not include it in the resources, but if you'd like, you can send me an email, and I have a list of resources that I can send that have broken down like 32 different vertical markets that you can look at. The other thing too here is this market. This is where we actually went from the individual vertical market that you see here, breaking out all the customers, where we aggregate it here, where under accounting, everything, or an automotive, banking, and finance, these are all aggregated so I can get an aggregate total and find out how that particular vertical market is trending. Now, for some, this might seem like, wow, this is a lot of work. And on the front end, folks, I'm telling you, it is. And I think that I was cursed pretty bad by a few people when they first started doing this. But when you can streamline this to look at this report and be able to see how your business is trending, it's fantastic. I mean, I can't tell you how much ease it is to say, okay, why am I, why am I spending all this time and energy in this particular vertical market when it's not being profitable? It's not pulling the numbers that I want. You may look at it to keep your ear to the ground. For instance, when the pharmaceutical company went through that whole thing with pharma and that whole issue, you can see these trends now. Most people didn't have their ear to the ground. Most people were just going about things willy-nilly. And most people a lot of people, I should say, that were in that space that weren't paying attention, were not watching the reports, were not reading things. Guess what? They took it on the chin pretty hard. But this is a way to prevent that type of thing if you're engaged in doing it. Another thing you can do, again, this is just kind of brings it to full circle about how it all works out. But again, I encourage you to take a hard look at this. So a lot of times people will ask, how do you start building your vertical platform? Start at home. Look at your current database. Then once you find out, like if you go back and you can say, wow, I'm really experiencing some really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Activity, let's say in hospitality. How do I expand that market? And then I want to look at the hospitality market and I go, okay, here's my A's and my B listed customers. What are the similarities between all those companies in that space? Could it be size of company, number of employees, type of company, whatever that is? Now, all of a sudden, I can go back and I can say, wow, well, this particular area, this is where I see some commonality. Now, when I go to prospecting, if I'm working with a company where I'm buying a list or whatever, now I have the filters in place that I can say, I want this, and this, these filters. And what does it do? Is it brings everything full circle so that it's not a guarantee, but it's more likely that you're going to be targeting the right people. You can do this on the web. I'm a voracious reader. I love reading information on the web and things like that. You can do this through blogs and RSS feeds, industry trade shows, etc. But once you have that information, what do you do with it? You want to be able to market successfully with that. Understanding the customers, understanding the space that they're in, and then working in that environment, folks, it's remarkable. So when you define vertical markets, a lot of people ask me, what does that mean? You saw it on a couple of the other slides. It can be done by industry, divisions, internal departments, locations, as we had mentioned, number of employees, the potential revenue, etc. But again, when I start building marketing that's relatable to this, I kind of use this grid, if you will, and how I narrow the field, for instance. So if I want to start with the financial field, let's say you're in Dallas, Texas. I want to deal with every financial company in Dallas, Texas. Guess what? Not happening. It's too big. And what happens is when you do that, when you have something that's so broad like that, you typically do nothing. But if you can funnel that down where you say, I want to deal with financial, but I want to deal specifically with credit unions. And let's say in this particular case in New York. And then I want to in the Manhattan area. And then I want to, with companies that have, or these financial credit unions that have more than 5 branches, and they have 1,000+ members, and they have a bilingual segment to them. Now, all of a sudden, you start putting these things in place. And by starting with financial, and then you list all these filters and criteria, at the very end, you may come up with 25 or maybe 50 targeted companies that fit the your AB profile that you can target and focus. I'm going to say it again, folks. I know it seems like a lot, but I promise you, if you embrace this concept, and again, it will take a little bit of time, but if you embrace this concept and realize that you're not going to get it all done in one day, you won't. But how do I embrace this concept? And how do I put it in place for the longevity and the health of my business and for your own personal health and well-being as well? Believe me, it works. We talked about this, about marketing touch points. So there's various marketing touch points, and then I'm going to get into a couple of quick case histories so we can wrap this up. But you, based on your profile, and there's various ways that you, from prospecting, direct mail could include letters, postcards, direct marketing like dimensional mail that I love, the creative campaigns, the things that you can do, email blasting, either through Constant Contact or hopefully you're using Sage's platform. You can do it through Sage. It could be face-to-face. That's rare from a prospecting standpoint nowadays, but there's so many things that you can use now to reach out and touch people. And I use the like letters and postcards. I mean, you can expand beyond that. Unbelievable. And I'll just throw this in. Technology has not only, I'm not talking about just digital technology, but technology to create information, create flyers, to create broadcast, to create dimensional marketing, all that has really driven our industry in such a way that I am so surprised that most people are not jumping on board with this every single day. Now, when you market to your existing customers, once again, I have mentioned this, you break this up. I have A through E customers. I mentioned what I would do with an E level customer, but if I'm want to deal with my A to B customers, I want to deal with them face to face if I have the opportunity. If I don't, the next stage down would be to engage with them via like Zoom or some type of digital platform like we're working on right now. But again, what are the other things that you're going to put in place? What are those things that you're going to do to touch those markets where you can stay in touch and stay engaged? I'll give you an example. How many of you out there, and you can think about it, send me an email later, how many of your customers know everything that you can do? How many of your customers know that? I would venture to say not many, because I know that I think I was pretty good at it, but I can't tell you how many times customers would say to me, well, I didn't know you did that. I don't know that you did that. Great opportunity. How about you come up with a did you know program? Did you know that ABC Marketing does this? Did you know that we do company stores? Did you know that we do apparel? Do you know that we do this? You know what? There's a great touch point that could go out to everyone in your database. So again, keeping these marketing touch points in place and understanding that whatever you're sending out, it definitely has to be engaging and relevant to the audience. One of the key things that I have here is you definitely need to have a strategy. And I'm going to show you that in a couple of seconds here as well. I put this together. There'll be no test, but I put this periodic table for the 142 elements that I've defined for creative marketing. And they include print, theme, products, the creative work, developing a purpose, engaging the senses, cool graphics, the distribution method, fulfillment, all of these different things. You become the marketing alchemist. Based on the markets that you're working with, you can pull any of these elements together, and you can create magic, stuff that's not in a catalog, folks, things that are different and unique and that represent you and have your voice and speak your language. That is where the magic happens. That is where the magic happens. Now, I created this also. This is part of the resource documents, but you're welcome to pull it up. This is done in this is a PDF, I believe. But the way I've done this, as you can see, that I've segmented A through P. So A, B, C, D, E, as we have discussed. F, these are the customers that we're going to get rid of. And I highly recommend that you look at your database after you've set your criteria. And if you have anybody that falls in the F category, guess what? They go. You don't talk to them anymore. I know that's going to be harsh, and a lot of people think I'm out of my mind, but trust me, it's going to definitely free you up to do other things. And then we have our hold category, our reactivation or inactive customers, and then our prospects. What are you going to do? You see, we have a touch point here, a frequency, various touch points and frequencies. What are you going to do for each of these categories? Have a plan. Now, people ask me all the time, well, Cliff, how much money, and this is one of the things that kind of floors me. How many few people have an actual budget for their marketing? I believe that you should have anywhere between 4 and 6% of your annual sales should go to your marketing. That doesn't mean that you have to spend it all, but when you start allocating that, how much am I going to allocate to the AB existing customers, AB type prospects? How much am I going to allocate to my reactivation? for my A/B listed customers, you may go through your list and come up with, I've got 6 people I need to reactivate. That's fine. And again, there's an opportunity, but how you break that down, and we could do a whole seminar on just breaking down the marketing budget and how that works. But again, if you have any questions on this, once again, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be at the end here. Now, I want to talk about a few assets. For those of you who are on Sage, if you are not using the design studio, the print studio at Sage, you are missing the boat. This is probably one of the most robust platforms that I have ever seen. I use it myself. You can create your own digital catalogs. You can pull data from their library, but it is absolutely amazing. Great asset. It's digital, right? A lot of people do golf tournaments. If you know the customers that are doing golf tournaments, this is relevant. This would be something that you could send out. You can create a 2-page flyer. You can create a 1-page flyer, a 4-page brochure, whatever the case may be. I've done this where I've put together what they call a one-sheet for my speaking. I've done it on the Sage platform. It is absolutely brilliant. I find that most people don't utilize all the assets that they have available to them. And this is one good asset that you could consider. When you're starting talking to your customers, there's a flyer that you could do, like this one from Keepsake Box in the center about a graduation box. These type of things depend. If you're in the education space, guess what? That's relevant. That's relevant. You could even take it a step further. If you know the customer's birthdays, you could actually break it down where you could filter the list and you could get on a program where you're sending either digital or you could do a handwritten card. There's any number of things you can do. I'm going to give you a great point here that you might want to think about. Anniversaries. I never gave towards the end of my selling career as having my marketing company, we used to do anniversary gifts to our customers, not holiday or Christmas gifts. So we segmented our list. We knew the first day that we had done business with a customer. And then what we did was we'd actually send them an anniversary gift that said, hey, by the way, happy 8th anniversary. People would call us up and go, what are you talking about? I'd say, this is the 8th year that you and I have been doing business together. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate it. For a D-listed customer, I may send a card. For a C-listed customer, I may send a card and a $5 gift card. A B-listed customer, which is going to be more, I might do the same thing, but I'm going to have maybe a gift. An A-listed customer, depending on the sales volume, I might do something even a lot nicer. It might be dinner for 2 somewhere for the person and their spouse, or whatever the case may be. The thing that you see here to the left, this is a great piece, doing year-end things. When all of a sudden the budgets are up, what are you doing to touch your customers and where it's relevant? Your D and E listed customers, that may be the one, they may be just giving you the business they can give you, but your A, B, and C listed customers definitely are looking at ways to unload their budgets at the end of the year. The question is, especially like if you're in education, they're always doing that, in manufacturing, et cetera. What are you doing? What is that reach, that touch, or that reach out that what you can do to talk to people or to connect with them? Here's another piece. We just did this for a buddy of mine. This was targeted specifically to HR managers in healthcare. This was a nice box. It had a great call to action. I'll make it a home run with KMK. Inside there, we did, we'd love the opportunity to pitch our team and explain our values. This was targeted to HR, which is all about teamwork and things like that. We did a custom baseball card that you see here that had the stats of each of the players or the people that worked at the organization. Each person that sent this out was able to send this out when they signed the baseball, and the number that they had on there was the number of years they had been with the organization. There was a light sound sensitive sound chip in here that really created engagement. And my buddy Barry told me that they've had significant success rates with this particular program. So again, this is not something, for instance, that you would send to a D level or a C level customer. Now, this was a prospecting tool. So do you understand how important it is to have your lists segmented? So that, for instance, if you're targeting prospects, you want to make sure that those prospects have the same characteristics as your current AB listed customers. And you can find that information. And so now my marketing efforts are going to be more focused and more targeted, and therefore going to have a better rate of return as we move forward. Here's another piece right here. I'm just going to noodle through a few of these. This one right here, great piece. This is targeted at the medical community as specifically. So looking for a shot of creativity, using a highlighter. We put a highlighter inside there and said, let us highlight why we're different. We sell the value. Give us a shot. We just like an opportunity. We inject brands with creativity and innovation. How do you just touch people? So often we're using static product. We're using static product all the time and hoping that it's going to make a difference. And in some cases it does. But do you see how this could elevate your game? If you start marketing like this for yourself and targeting right, I promise you your customers and prospects are going to take notice. It's happened to me. It's happened to multiple people that I've worked with. It is truly something that's really, truly amazing. Now, we talked about inactive customers. How do we reactivate those? Here's a simple piece right here. Amazing how time flies. Let's schedule a time to connect so I can share the new tools we have to improve marketing performance. And cool graphics, a puzzle that goes on the inside of the box. This could be targeted. Once again, I'm not a big fan of going in and looking at all your customers that you haven't worked with in 6 months or more and say, let's send everybody something. No, let's put those people in place too. Of the people that I have inactive, how many of them are A-listed and how many of them are B-listed customers? And then target those, because that is where the meat of your business is and the meat of your profitability. Lastly, or close to lastly here, one of the things that's really important, and again, this goes back to your time and understanding, is it working, is to track and measure every effort that you have in place. So if you're doing a campaign like a reactivation campaign, create an Excel spreadsheet, or if you have the ability in a CRM platform, like Sage has a great CRM platform that you could utilize, plug all that information in there and then keep track of the success of these campaigns, because we want to make sure that if you're spending X number of dollars, is it working? Because if it's not working, and you'll know soon enough, you'll have the ability to pivot, change it, tweak it possibly. But if it's successful, guess what? You can do it again and again and again. Now, here's the nice thing. If you have a success with something like this, what's really interesting is that you have now a case history that you can share with your customers. This is something now you can say, this is what we have done. Love to be able to help you build, because they're experiencing time management issues as well. They need to make sure sales managers, salespeople, marketers, they're all experiencing the same challenges you are, maybe at various levels, but you have the ability now to really do something that's a little bit different and just really set the tone. So folks, final thoughts here. Really get to know your customers. And asking the right questions is absolutely key. Help your clients do the same. And I'm a big believer that if you're going to sit and you're going to ask someone to do something or to expect them to do something, do it first. Let them see you do it. Let them see it actionable from your standpoint first. It'll make a huge difference. Always look at driving measurement, because I'm a big fan, again, 24 hours. When I'm in the business, how do I maximize that time? When I'm with my kids, how do I maximize that time with them? How do I get every bit of energy and out of that thing? Know your worth. Get paid. You're not worth $10 an hour. You're worth at least $100 an hour. Make sure you're getting paid for it. And doing this and making sure it's relevant, you will see incremental changes, I should say exponential changes, if you choose to embrace this. Make sure that every element that you have of engagement is relevant and streamlined and engaging. That said, I want to thank you for attending today's seminar on maximizing your time management by evaluating and segmenting your clients. As Ryan said early on, if you have any questions, feel free to send them to Sage. I will take the time to answer all of them, and they will do their best to make sure everybody on the attendance list here will get answers to those questions. And I'll thank you. And I believe I'm going to turn this back over to Ryan.
I'm here, Cliff. That was awesome. So some quotes from the session. Amazing session, great advice, learning a lot, loving this session. Cliff, this is so resourceful. Awesome session. Down below, so many questions about this. Resources are below the screen here. If you want to access them later, you can jump over to sessions on the left side of your screen, go to this session, and you can grab those resources. So again, Cliff, wonderful session. Thank you in advance for taking the time to answer the questions that did come through. We'll get those over to you. But that was awesome. We're going to take about a minute break, and we're going to come back on with Carson. She's going to be doing a deep dive into Sage Online with an emphasis on projects. So again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you again, Cliff, and we'll see you in just a couple of seconds, probably.